you do that so you can be more engaged in fighting for the justice or against the injustice that took his life?
Absolutely. That, and like my freedom and peace is tied into everyone else's freedom and peace by nature. Like I could not ever experience real ease and freedom if you are not experiencing ease and freedom too. It's just not possible. I can have a measure of it.
So there's this term in Judaism, chesed, which is like, we look at the Orthodox Jews, they're called the Hasidim. Mm-hmm. And often that is like, it has an interpretation of like being a good person, a studied person, a noble person. But what chesed really means is a little bit, maybe even a layer beyond that, what you were talking about of empathy versus compassion, which is also a delineation I understand. But even a step further of, I am in it with you.
Right.
That you and I are not separate.
Right.
Empathy is, has its power, which is something, there's a lot of conversation around empathy in past years, but this next layer of like, not only can I see your suffering and acknowledge your pain, but I'm going to be shoulder to shoulder with you. I'm going to build with you. I am going to bury your dead with you. I am going to shoulder the burdens you're feeling alongside you. And I found that to be very beautiful. Like I was thinking about that a lot this year as I was sitting in the high holidays, and I really just... when I'm in my most touched-in place of feeling identified or feeling the inextricable bonding between someone else's suffering and my own, that is where I can be the wisest and most compassionate and most selfless in how I act. And there's this challenge, I think, as we experience right now, and some of this is a function of identity politics and a lot of these things, where like that same part of like, you don't get what I go through, you don't, and so this same desire to kind of walk shoulder to shoulder with somebody, especially in spaces where we're separated by, I'm Jewish, you're Muslim, I'm white, you're brown, any of these things, you don't know my struggle, mm-hmm. right? There's this stiff arming of it, mm-hmm. right? You don't know what it's like to walk in my shoes. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, I never will, mm-hmm. right? But what I can tap into is what is universal in the individual experience you're having. Right? And I think this is where those layers of like being bullied or seeing injustice or knowing what it's like to be fearful, right. A lot of times I connected this notion when we were when the Me Too movement was happening, right? And men just like didn't quite know how to show up in that moment, right? There was I felt a real struggling with like, I want to show up, I recognize your pain, I'm never identified with any of those men that you may feel have done these harms to you. There's this want to like, not all men, right? There's this desire to be in that space or to like show up as an ally, but to not know how, and to like having that rage come outwards.
We just had a moment of like...
I just debased everything I'm saying about compassion.
You really did. You just put into example why it's so difficult to like try to live in this way and be a human being, because it is like we have our own reactions to things, like like what makes something funny or not funny.
Yeah.
It's just hard to know. Like what makes something painful or not painful for someone else. It's hard to really understand that. It's not that it's universal, actually,
Yeah.
because we are experiencing things through our own lens, and there's no getting away from that.
To give everyone a background, we're recording in the park. A woman was walking her dog and talking.
You heard her in the background.
Fairly loudly, on her Bluetooth headsets or whatever, and just kind of like walking around in circles with her dog, trying to get it to poop. And then she literally walked face first into this sign that her dog was circling around. And I think the reason it was humorous is because it was clear that she wasn't that hurt. Had she really gone down, I think there would have been a rush towards
we would have done something
towards care. But then, there I was laughing at someone else's misfortune. So, just to say that these spiritual teachings can be really difficult to embody sometimes.
There's something about that I think is really valuable and confusing. Like that spiritual teachings are not teaching you how to be who you are. What they're doing is they're helping you understand how you are what you are. This is not spiritual practices are not like a blueprint for how you should be. That's the mistake that I think we make generally. It's to accept that you are and to find latitude within it. And you're describing this principle in Judaism of like being in it with you. The very nature of our existence is that we are. That there is in no way for me to be outside of it with you. It's just not possible. Like, I am shoulder to shoulder with you because I am. Not because I choose to be, but because I am shoulder to shoulder with you. And that's, like, you were describing this, and immediately my head came this Zulu principle of Ubuntu. And, it's software, but it's also, this is a spiritual teaching, too, which says, I am because we are. Or I am because you are. I can only understand and experience myself in relationship with you, not outside of relationship. And watching this woman get hit, hit herself rather, laughing at misfortune of other people, illustrates it's funny because I've totally done it. It's funny because I could totally see that happening to me. That's why it's funny, because it's not gravely injurious that something like that would happen. It's not an injustice. Is it the most wise or kind or thoughtful response? No, not necessarily. But is it harmful? I wouldn't say so. No. And these teachings are encouraging us to put ethical principles into our lives, because the way that religion has framed it is because on the other side of life there's some judgment that will come down from some higher being or what have you. But in a lived sense, we have a duty to behave ethically because we are in it together, because I am responsible for the impact that I have now. In the broader context, I think it's okay that we are struggling and feeling all the feelings that are arising. We need to feel them, metabolize them, let them teach us what is harmful and what is hurtful, and then return to a grounded place from which we can take action and make decisions.